Before listen, lock your door.
Subscribe for daily horror story.
First story.
My uncle worked the mines back in the day. Said some shafts don't collapse from time or rain but from breathing. If you camp near a mine that exhales when there's no wind, he told me, you pack up and leave before it inhales again. I didn't understand what he meant until last fall. I was camping solo for the weekend, looking for untouched scenery to photograph. Most of the good campsites in the Smokies were packed with people and noise. But an old friend from college, who'd grown up around Greenford Ridge, pointed me toward a forgotten fire road that led up to a ridge above a decommissioned coal shaft. The mine had been closed since the 70s after 3 workers went missing. Inside, he said it was quiet, secluded. Dead place, he called it. Meant it as a compliment. I followed his hand-drawn map and hiked 6 miles through thickets and switchbacks until the trail bottomed out into a shallow basin. That's where I saw the mouth of the mine, a wide gash in the hillside, rimmed with rotting timbers. Rusted rails stretched out from the black entrance and disappeared into brush. Someone had strung rusted chain across the mouth, but it was more symbolic than secure. The sign was still nailed into a tree nearby. Danger. Mine sealed. Do not enter. The rest had been scratched off. I set up camp 200 yards away, far enough not to worry about cave-ins, but close enough to get some cool twilight shots. There were no animals, no birds, not even flies. Just that stale, metallic taste in the air that settles in your mouth like old coins as dusk fell. I took a few long exposures of the mine entrance. The camera struggled to focus on the darkness inside. Every shot came out slightly blurred, like the shadows refused to sit still. That's when I heard it. A deep, slow exhale coming from the mine. No wind on my skin, no trees rustling. Just that long breath, like something massive was slumped just. Out of sight and letting the air out of its lungs, I froze. It stopped. Silence again. Maybe the mine was settling, I thought. Maybe the cold air was pushing out warmer air. I remembered something about temperature differentials and air pressure from a geology podcast. I convinced myself that's what it was. I ate quickly, no fire, just a headlamp and a granola bar. Then I crawled into my tent and tried to fall asleep. At 2:13 a.m., I woke up choking, not from a dream. The air was thick, heavy like the whole forest had lost its oxygen. I unzipped the tent and stuck my head out, gasping. The trees were still. My breath fogged in front of me, but there was no wind to move it. Then I heard the second breath. This time it wasn't an exhale. It was an inhale, fast, deep, like something sucking in the air around it, starving for pressure. The trees groaned inward. Loose leaves skittered toward the mine entrance. Even my tent fabric, QUIVERED.I, shut the zipper and curled into a ball. Silence returned for maybe 30 seconds. Then came the voice, muffled, male ragged, like it had been buried too long. Hello. It echoed like it came from underground, but above me I sat up. My heart wasn't pounding, it was thrashing. Another voice followed, this one a whisper inches from the tent wall. You down here with us? I didn't answer. Then came the worst sound. The dragging of something across the dirt. Not feet, not paws, but fingers. Dozens of them, all crawling toward the tent. I grabbed my flashlight, flicked it on, and shone it at the tent wall. Nothing, no shadows, no movement. Then my light flickered, dimmed, then came back full strength. There was a shape outlined on the other side of the nylon now. It wasn't standing, it was hanging upside down. I bolted out the side zipper and ran barefoot through brush, scraping my legs on thorns and roots. I didn't care. I ran uphill, toward the ridge, not stopping until I was at least half a mile from camp. There, I crouched under a downed pine and listened. Silence, then another exhale, but much closer. I looked behind me. The mine entrance was now visible, even though it should have been hidden by terrain. It had followed me, or I had followed it. The path was wrong. Trees had shifted. The timbers around the mine. Mouth creaked. Then I saw a shape tall, wide, bent in the middle like it couldn't fit through the entrance. Fingers too long, skin tight over bone. It didn't walk. It crawled, low to the ground, with its face pressed into the dirt like it was listening to the earth itself. I didn't scream, it would have heard me. I waited until it slithered back into the mine and the air pressure popped back to normally as unlocked breath returning. I spent the rest of the night clinging to that tree. When morning broke, I crept back to camp. The tent was still there, but collapsed, and on top of it, a mining helmet. I didn't bring a helmet. I left everything. Hiked back with nothing but my phone and the knife in my waistband. 2 weeks later, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. The message was static, except for the last few seconds, someone breathing, then whispering, "You down here with us? Now, next time you camp near a mine that breathes, don't wait for the second inhale. Leave before something starts crawling out to meet you."
Second story.
My father once told Miff, "You're walking in the hills and hear your own footsteps repeating after you stop. You're not alone," he said. "The rocks out there remember movement, and sometimes they walk it back to you." I laughed when I was younger. I don't anymore. It started as a solo weekend. I'd just got in my field recorder and wanted to capture clean forest ambience for a sound design project. The maps led me to a lesser-known stretch of rocky highlands flanking the western edge of the Appalachians' no-trail markers. No cell towers, just stone, pine, and wind. I hiked in with a small tent and 3 days' worth of food. Camped near a rocky ridge no one had named, but some old hikers called Dead Echo Hill. They said even your voice sounded like it didn't want to come back up there. The first day went fine. Birds, bugs, distant winds. I got great recordings. That night, I set up camp between 2 large stone outcrops that shielded me from the wind. It was quiet, almost too quiet. At 1:46 a.m., my recorder picked up something I didn't hear at the time. Footsteps, slow, light, like someone pacing just outside my tent. Then they stopped. Then the exact same pattern played again in reverse, step by step, backward. Same timing, same rhythm. I didn't find out until the next morning while scrubbing audio. That second playback wasn't an echo. It was something repeating what it had heard and giving it back. I told myself it had to be an animal, wind, anything. I stayed. A second night. That was my mistake. Sometime after 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of rocks shifting, not falling, not tumbling, shifting, like stone being slid across. Stones, low, deliberate, unnatural. I sat up and listened. Then came the footsteps again, only this time, they didn't stop when I stopped breathing. They circled the tents, low dragging soles, crunching gravel. Then something tapped on the nylon wall, not hard, just enough to let me know it knew where I was. I grabbed my flashlight and unzipped just enough to peek out. Nothing, no wind, no prints, no movement, but the rocks around me had changed. 3 of them now formed a perfect triangle around the tent. They hadn't been like that before, and on one of them, etched deep and fresh, was a bare human footprint, longer than mine, toes too narrow, heel too sharp. I left the tent behind, started walking at dawn, cutting through brush and slope just to get away. But every half hour, I'd hear it against steps behind me. Then the same pattern playing back, like the land itself was mocking me. The sun was already low when I found a clearing of boulders I hadn't passed before. In the middle was a stone table flat, deliberate, unnatural. Resting on top of it was my recorder, the one I left zipped in the tent. Its light was blinking. Someone or something had turned it back on. I pressed play and heard my own breathing. Then, the whisper, "We remember. We walk what you leave behind." Then the recorder shut off. No sound, no birds, no wind, just the memory of what I'd done playing itself, a gun over and over in the stone. I ran. I don't remember how I made it back to the car. I drove 6 hours in silence. No music, no talking, just the dull crunch of gravel in my head, too. Weeks later, I found rock dust on the floor of my apartment. Live on the 3rd floor of a concrete building. Then I started hearing the footsteps. Again, always in 3s, and sometimes right after I stop moving, one more footstep answers back next time. You hear your own footsteps repeating in the Appalachians. Don't stop walking. The rocks aren't empty. They're listening, and they walk things back.
3rd story.
My grandfather once told me, if you ever walk so deep into the woods that sunlight no longer touches the ground, you're no longer alone. He said, the canopy hides more than the sky. I didn't understand what he meant until it was too late. I'd joined a semi-professional botany survey group for a 3-day trek. But after 2 days, I split off on my own. I preferred solo exploration. My goal was to reach the far eastern edge of the Appalachian Range, where the canopy was so thick that sunlight supposedly never touched the forest floor. A handful of field notes from the 1960s mentioned it as a lightless corridor, but no trail marked its way. I had my GPS unit, a compass, 3 days of rations, and an audio recorder I used for capturing insect sounds. It took me 6 hours of hard hiking through uneven terrain to finally reach the edge of that forest. The moment I stepped beneath the dense canopy, the world changed. The temperature dropped at least 10 degrees. The air felt heavier, and everything was silent. No birds, no insects, not even the buzzing of flies. The only sound was the faint crunch of leaves beneath my boots, muffled by layers of damp decay. I pitched my tent around 4 p.m., knowing it would be pitch black shortly after. In this part of the forest, sunset didn't matter. The trees above knitted so tightly together. It was like sleeping beneath the rafters of a collapsed wooden cathedral. As I ate my dinner, just a protein bar and some filtered creek water, I turned on my audio recorder. I left it running for a sample, trying to capture the eerie quiet. When I played it back a few minutes later, something unfamiliar came through. Breathing. Not mine, not natural. It was deep, heavy, as if someone or something was leaning inches from the mic. I turned off the recorder, looked around, nothing. I told myself it was interference. Maybe a low wind through the leaves. I zipped into my tent just after 7 p.m. I tried to sleep, but kept my hand wrapped around the handle of my knife inside the sleeping bag. At 1:50 a.m., I heard footsteps, not animal, not random, human, barefoot, slow, deliberate. They stopped just outside my tent. I held my breath, and then a voice, not loud, not angry. "Don't look up." It didn't come from outside. It came from inside my mind, like a thought I didn't think, a warning, or maybe a command. I clenched my eyes shut and stayed that way for 3 more hours. When the first light came dull and colorless through the green canopy, unzipped the tent and looked around. No tracks, no broken twigs, no sign of anyone or anything. Then I turned to pack up my camp, and that's when I saw it. I had set my tent directly beneath the perfect circle in the canopy, an open gap just large enough to let moonlight pour down. If there had been moonlight, like someone had cleared it out deliberately. As I moved toward it, I noticed something in my palm, splinters, tiny pieces of rough bark and wood, embedded deep, as if I'd been gripping a branch tightly, or climbing something. I didn't remember climbing a tree. I didn't remember leaving my tent at all, but my hands told another story. I left that place within an hour, carrying only my essentials: recorder, compass, and knife. 2 days later, safe at home, I downloaded the audio recordings. One file had recorded automatically around 2:04 a.m. I never turned it on. I hit play. The first 10 seconds were quiet. Then came the breathing. Then a scraping noise, like fingernails dragging slowly across nylon. And finally, a voice. Low, male, dry. "If you look up, you stay." Then the sound of something falling, fast, through air. But no impact, no crash, just descent. As if it fell forever. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I stepped onto my apartment balcony for air. I don't know why I did it, but I looked up across the street. On the roof of the building opposite mine, something stood, upside down, arched backward, clinging to the shingles like a spider. It didn't move, didn't speak, but it was looking straight at me and behind it. Above the roofline there was no sky, just branches, endless branches. Next time you find yourself deep beneath an Appalachian canopy where sunlight can't reach, don't camp, don't stop, and whatever you do, don't look up.